What's up, folks? We'll let this all start up, and you guys tell me if you can hear me. We're doing a follow-up from today's video on the the whole pistol brace thing. So I would use my whole setup, but I think for lives it does better if I can pull the chat up, and plus I really want to be able to see some comments from today's video. So let me know that all is good on your guys' end while I get this thing all set up. Need to pop the chat out. Pop out chat. Okay, cool. Excellent. All right, I can see you guys rolling in. Okay, so for the icebreaker today, many of you let me know that a death nail is not a thing. So learning has occurred today. Death nail is actually death knell, and it's spelled Knell, and it is a bell or a chime to signal the death of someone or something. I am from Appalachia, and I have never claimed to ever have a strong command of the English language. So, even though it's the only one that I sort of speak. So, yeah. So, you guys can keep beating me up in the comments if you like, but I appreciate the engagement, as always. Somebody says it's broken. I can see your face. Well done. Well done. So I wanted to do a quick follow-up today with you guys, and my YouTube rep basically is like, dude, you got to do more lives. You got to tell people that they got to hit your notification settings, all that sort of stuff. That's what's really holding growth up. So that's, so I thought a perfect opportunity tonight while I'm waiting for it to get dark enough, because I plan to go out here just in a few minutes and do some night vision content. And I also apologize, I had the plague. I dosed up on some Dayquil before this whole thing started about an hour ago. So hopefully that's all kicked in and everything. But if I am doing a whole bunch of coughing, I apologize and all that stuff. But I want to do a follow-up from today's video, because I think that a fair amount of people are missing the point when it comes to today's ruling. And specifically, I saw a ton of comments about, oh, well, this whole thing that happened today doesn't matter because, well, they're just going to appeal. Fold AR in the chat. Thank you very much. The whole thing today, people were saying, oh, well, this doesn't matter because the ATF's just going to appeal. The thing about that is the point. We hope that they appeal this, because now that Judge Reed O'Connor has come down with a decision on that preliminary injunction, that is now inserted into the case. Now, he did not try to use Second Amendment grounds to render his decision. He rendered his decision based on the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals directions. They basically said, hey, you need to rule on this through APA, and he did that. But in doing that, he took the opportunity to then pack it full of Second Amendment rhetoric, okay? In doing that, he has now solidified those arguments inside of the case for the rest of the tenure that it's going to. Those documents can now be referenced at any point in the case. So the reason why it would be great if the ATF were to appeal this decision, which I fully believe that they will appeal this decision, because I just don't see this regime that is there letting this go. They're going to walk right into it and keep on pushing, because they need to appear as though they are fighting the good fight, so to speak, and they're going to continue to push this, even if it's a foolish thing to do. So, for those of you who are just now tuning in and aren't really tracking what it is that I'm talking about, today we had a decision come down in the pistol brace situation that basically said, hey, this is not cool on APA, but hey, if we were to also look at this Second Amendment side of things, this whole thing about brace, stock, it's kind of dumb. And because it's kind of dumb, it wouldn't surprise me if somebody challenged it on this and deleted the NFA. So what the judge did was basically say, hey, a stock, a brace, they both make firearms more handleable. They make them more likely to be shot accurately, and that is not a bad thing. So the whole concept of SBRs being dangerous, the judge basically put that to bed in today's case. So if the ATF were to appeal today's decision, it would go back up to the Fifth Circuit. The Fifth Circuit would look at it based on today's decision. Now, I don't think they're going to necessarily appeal the preliminary injunction. I think at this point in time, they'll probably wait to see what the full decision of the court is. So, yeah. As far as the best case scenario for us, the Second Amendment advocacy and the Second Amendment community, everybody who loves freedom is concerned, the best case scenario would be if the ATF and the DOJ and all the government defendants involved were to appeal today's decision by Judge Reed O'Connor back to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. That would be the best case scenario, because then it would force the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals to rule on the validity of his APA decision today that is packed with Second Amendment rhetoric. And we already know that they said, hey, we want you to rule on this as per the APA. They sent it back down and said, hey, you need to do this the right way, and here's the path that you need to take. So real quick, I see you guys blowing up my comment section here. Let me go to this. I know that there's a whole bunch of them. The question is, Curtis, do you think, first of all, never trust a Curtis that spells his name with a K. It's a C. Do you think the judge's decision today allows us to put stocks on rifles with barrels less than 16 inches? No. Do not go do that. Okay? Do not do that. What he did in today's decision was signal that this whole semantics between stock, pistol brace is really a dumb thing. He did not go through the constitutional analysis, and there was no NFA challenge as of yet that he ruled on saying, hey, this allows you to do this. Now that he has said this, that doesn't mean that once the ATF appeals the ultimate decision at the district court up to the Fifth Circuit, that Firearms Policy Coalition can't say, hey, Judge Reed O'Connor thinks that this whole thing about braces versus stocks is dumb. Fifth Circuit, what do you think about that? Because they've already said that they fully expect this thing to come back to them with Second Amendment things attached to it. So again, so everybody's tracking, this showed up back to Reed O'Connor based on Administrative Procedures Act, excuse me, lost my train of thought. It showed up back at his desk for Administrative Procedures Act, but the Fifth Circuit fully expected this to come back after he does that with Second Amendment issues. And they said it, if you look at the August 1, I think it was, opinion from the Fifth Circuit en banc panel, you'll see what that is. If you just, it's only a couple pages long. You go read that, you'll see that they fully expect, they spelled it out. We fully expect this to come back later with Second Amendment problems. All right, so do not. I'm not advocating for anybody to get rolled up for NFA problems at this juncture. However, the signals are good. I was prepping some gear to go out tonight. I'm covered in grease, so sorry. All right, back to the questions. Where were we? And then the other thing I would say about that is there's some things about people have been saying about like SBSs versus SBRs, and I think that if you listen to the oral arguments from the was it Fifth Circuit? Yeah, it was Fifth Circuit in this case. They're talking about SBRs. They go into SBRs versus SBSs and all that sort of stuff. And I think that the discussion kind of devolved a little bit around that point in time where they were basically like, "Hey, we want to just focus on APA right now, and then maybe we'll do Second Amendment here if it comes to that a little bit later." But the rhetoric around that very much centered around the distinctive difference between a sawed-off shotgun that is an activity that is done for the purposes of increasing the spread or increasing the inaccuracy of the firearm, and a short-barreled rifle, which is a less lethal thing because the velocity is lower. They did touch on that in the oral arguments, and the only difference between a short-barrel rifle and a pistol is that it is more stable and easier to use. So I think that the court very much agreed at that point in time with FPC when they were arguing that because of those simple truths. If you got a gnat in here. My sister-in-law gave me a plant, and I've had gnats ever since. We have a super chat. Thank you very much from Rochanel Vaughn. The judge was based almost did it. Based AF. Also free Matt Hoover. I'm dying here. And what the hell is going on with the USCCA? Plan on switching to firearms legal protection. Okay. This video is not about the USCCA. Okay. I have said things in the past. I stand by them. I don't have a problem individually with the USCCA. I have a problem with some of the decisions that they have made in their marketing schemes about who they choose to pay to market their service. I believe that we should limit the expenditure of a Second Amendment oriented organization. Their expenditures should be finely tailored inside of the community in which they serve. And they should not hire pro-gun control advocates to do their marketing. But that is not today's discussion point. Thank you very much for the super chat. Let's see here. Back to the questions real quick. Somebody says, I can't wait to say goodbye to their stamp collection. Yep. As someone who has a ridiculous stamp collection, as in I have a dedicated safe for suppressors only. That would be a great thing. I could literally do like a Home Alone thing where he puts like the marbles all over the ground, but instead of marbles, I'm just using suppressors, because how many suppressors can you use at one point in time, right? The 22 ones I think would be the most effective because they're the easiest to miss. You can get a whole bunch of them under a single foot, right? Somebody says best case is full gutting of the NFA. Yeah. Next one is dissolving of the ATF. I don't think that even if this were to go NFA challenge, I don't think that would entirely gut the NFA. I think that the lowest hanging fruit in the NFA at this point in time. I would have said suppressors previously, but in my opinion, I think that the short barrel rifle provisions of the NFA are easily disputed at this point in time, given the nature of what we're currently working with. I think that those will be the first to go. And I think all it takes is a legitimate challenge, and this might be it. That will remain to be seen. But I think that those are probably the ones. If you'd asked me 10 years ago, I was going to say suppressors. But now I think that the government has stepped in it in such a big way that it wouldn't surprise me at all if this whole fiasco results in the dissolution of at least the short barrel rifle provisions. I still think that SBSs are a step maybe too far. That's just me kind of looking at what's been written again, or what's been written. I'm just looking at the writing on the wall, so to speak, from what was said in the oral arguments at the Fifth Circuit. I think that that SBS is, again, for the inaccuracy of cutting the barrel down versus because let's be honest, SBS is code for sawed-off shotgun, right? Generally speaking, when you make a short barrel rifle, you're not cutting the barrel off, right? You're usually you've got a gun that is in pistol format, and then you convert it to an SBR, right? Because you want to use the stock and the foregrip and all that sort of stuff, right? Generally speaking, you're adding accessories to a pistol to make it more controllable when you're making an SBR. When you're making an SBS, or at least every SBS that I have made. Well, no, I take that back. I have a couple of the Henry axes that I've converted to SBSs, and actually use the one of them. The way the power comes into the office here is it comes in underneath of the gutter on the side of the house, and we get really bad freezing rain. Then it will overtop the gutter, and then when the wind blows, you can see the power shift a little bit when as it flexes the line. So I go out with the 410 Henry axe and use it to shoot in a space about this big, to blow the ice crystals between the gutter and the power line, right? So probably 4 or 5 times a winter I have to go out and do that, but legitimate purposes, all lawful purposes. Let's see here. Well, you guys are crushing this today. Hang on. So he says, I'm glad those taxes make those weapons safe and legal. Look, if you're under any illusion that taxes are for anything other than fleecing you, just look at the roads that you drive on, right? Yeah. Okay, question. I did not cover this in the in today's video because I kind of ran out of time, and I want to keep those news videos short, because a lot of times I'm pulling people in from across different disciplines, and I cannot count on their attention span like all of your guys's, right? So I try to keep it to the point, and I know that you guys appreciate that, but the thing that I deleted from that video is that this does only cover the named plaintiffs, as in Maxim Defense customers, FPC customers, and then the named plaintiffs, right? There are other cases dealing with this, and up to this point, Mock v. Garland, the case that we're talking about, has controlled those cases. So, because it was the farthest up, right? And I believe that to still be the case, they're still probably going to control those cases. So it would not surprise me at all if tomorrow, for instance, you see some movement from those other cases, like the FRAC case and the GOA case and the NAGR case. I feel like I'm forgetting somebody. I'm sorry. There's a whole litany of cases out there that, under the same guise, basically said, "Hey, they said in mock that this is this way," and the judge was like, "Yeah, well, what they said, right?" So I'm expecting probably tomorrow, the next day, something like that. You're going to see some movement in those cases that basically update them to this status, right? So while those people currently aren't covered, so to speak, give it a day or two, right? Somebody asked, does Congress have to change the NFA or can a lawsuit change it? So there are multiple avenues by which the NFA could be changed. One of them is that a law is passed that invalidates the NFA as previously written, or updates it, kind of like what you saw with the Gun Control Act, right? So the Gun Control Act was an update to the NFA in a couple different ways. So if we got a new law that said the NFA is changed in this way, then yeah, that would be. However, it doesn't have to happen that way. A court case could absolutely invalidate portions of the NFA. So if it was determined that the NFA or GCA was partially unconstitutional because it violated various aspects of the Second Amendment, which we know that it does, it's just never been challenged in a big way. That's why this decision today is such a big deal. Then it could absolutely delete provisions of the NFA. And I'm willing to take little snippets out of it, little bites out at a time, as opposed to full repeal, to slowly repeal it and get that done over the course of a decade than I am to sit here for another decade and not get full repeal, right? You see what I mean? So you're asking elected officials to do something versus appointed officials to do something a little bit different. So what would cause a full sale repeal is if it went to the Supreme Court and they said, yeah, that's completely outside of the scope of what was supposed to happen as far as the text, history, and tradition in the United States. That could absolutely axe it. However, I think what is more realistic is that you're going to get a piecemeal, little pieces at a time, probably SBRs first, then probably suppressors, then you probably get SBSs, maybe AOWs somewhere in there. I don't know. Who cares about AOWs anyway? And then your machine guns will be last, probably. Destructive devices, I think, yeah, destructive devices after that, along with dangerous ordnance. So I feel like you get machine guns before you get grenade launchers. I'm just saying, but I could be wrong. All right, I'm just guessing. Let's see. Taxing a right somebody asked, taxing a right could be an avenue to gut the NFA. Yes, it could absolutely be. And there is substantive evidence, and it has been talked about up to this point in the court cases about that whole taxing a right thing. That has come up on multiple occasions. So it wouldn't surprise me if that wasn't used. So yes. Somebody concurred. The Buddy Cassius says, or no, that's the wrong one. Sorry. Heinrich says that he was born in Appalachia also, and he calls it a death nail. So I don't feel so bad. Yeah, death nail, NAIL versus KNELL. Bad roads, Iowa moment. Yeah, I've been to Iowa many a time. My brother used to live there, and yeah, the roads are really, really bad. Let's see. Sorry, I'm trying to read through the chat and get other questions here because you guys have been blowing it up. Most of you guys are just really happy about today's ruling, so that's good. Do we know when one would have to have become a member of the FPC to be covered by the injunction? It says all FPC members. So there is no differentiating time, right? I don't know who did this, okay? We have we have a tendency, to our credit, I suppose, in the Second Amendment community to overanalyze a lot of things. It's all members of FPC. If you're a member of FPC, then you are covered. So it doesn't give a time limit. It doesn't say, hey, you had to be a member at this point in time from here to here, right? No, it doesn't say that. It says all FPC members. So okay, there are more people saying that it's death nail. NAIL. So there. It's not my fault. I believe what this is. I believe that this is an amalgamation of coffin nail, last nail in the coffin, right? And death knell, which is the chime, the bell chime when somebody dies or something like that. I believe that as we do here in Appalachia, we have taken these two ideas and combined them into one to make something better. We do it all the time. I've seen a lot going on with the FPC situation. I've seen a lot of people go on and on about how that's a de facto registry because now now they can say, okay, well, give us your membership so we know who has pistol braces and it. Really, I'm not. I don't usually poo-poo conspiracy theories, right? I try my best not to do that, but the FPC is just going to tell them to sue them, right? If anybody is going to burn as much, waste as much government time as possible, it's the Firearms Policy Coalition. So Nora from Florida, that's literally her handle, says, been watching your channel regularly for a while now and wanted to say thanks. Well, Nora from Florida, thank you very much. Are you actually from Florida or did you come from Ohio and move to Florida? That's my question, because if you go down to Florida, like half the people that live there are from Ohio. Which, so somebody said something, somebody says my ATM card crapped out and FPC didn't get my small monthly payments. This, I believe, is going to be one of the basis that is going to be later used to argue against these separate classes, right? So just because you paid your money to FBC, you are now protected, right? But what if you intended to pay, but your ATM card had a problem? So like these, I believe that ultimately that is going to be what breaks it in the direction of a nationwide injunction, where you've got this kind of stuff that's just very contrived, in my opinion, to determine who's protected and who isn't. Like, I feel like that is going to be one of the things that really kind of breaks it into a nationwide injunction on this. Now, I might be wrong. It might actually break it the other direction, but yeah, I don't know. Am I the only one who thinks that that's a really weird way to do things? I understand that at this juncture, we are talking about a preliminary injunction. We're not talking about a final decision or anything like that. And maybe in the final decision, we'll see a nationwide injunction put on the rule. But right now, it feels very, very contrived and very weird that is the way that it happens. The other thing that I would address in that is, bro, why are you using an ATM card? You shouldn't be using your ATM card for anything except for going to the ATM. This is a piece of advice that I'm going to give to everybody free of charge, right? Your ATM card, your debit card, right? That is the only time you use that card is if you are going to the ATM and you're putting the ATM card in, putting your PIN in and withdrawing money from the ATM, because whatever you're doing requires cash, right? Everything else that you should use when it comes to banking and that kind of like ACH payments and stuff like that, that should be a direct link. So, like for instance, um, I have a small shop, and because of that, I have to pay sales tax here in Ohio whenever I sell something, uh, point of sale, like retail stuff, right? Vendor's license, all that sort of stuff. That is an ACH that is hooked up directly through that checking account. They don't even use the debit card then. You should never use a debit card for anything except for paying or except for withdrawing money from your bank. You should never use it to pay for anything. Use credit cards for that. And there are several important reasons for that. First and foremost, if it is credit, it is fake money. And if you have a credit problem, I have had thousands upon thousands of dollars stolen from my business, so to speak, over the years, where somebody has gotten my credit card information and committed some fraud, whatever, and I contact my bank saying, hey, this is fraud. They shut the card down. They send you a new card in a couple days, and then they basically identify what's fraud, what's not, and they put the money back, and nobody really cares, right? They're able to move the money back. If you get fraud on your card and they take money out of your bank account, as in real money in your bank account, they may not put it back, right? It may not go back. You're playing with fire there. Also, when you use a credit card, I always get the credit cards that have the like cash back. They have more cash back rewards than the dumb crap that you get from you doing 5,000 points to these miles over here or whatever, right? You're much better to use a credit card and redeem the points, pay your balance on time, just like it was a debit card. That you treat it like a debit card, but you take advantage of the cashback rewards and you make back like 10% of your money on all your purchases. So everything that you purchase costs like 10% less when you do the math back through. You have to be diligent with that. And if you're not responsible enough to be diligent with that, then you probably shouldn't be using any kind of electronic transactions whatsoever, right? You should be doing cash and checks. Off my soapbox on that. Go get yourself a credit card and use it responsibly. I know that there are lots of people. That somebody says, "What kind of credit card gives you 10% back?" It depends on the types of purchases. If you look at the agreement in your credit card, there are some cashback credit cards that give you high percentage back on certain transaction things. Like I think it's not 10% across the board, but it's like 5% on gas some months, and then it's like there was one a couple months ago on my card where it was 15% back points wise on hotel accommodations, right? Right? What do you spend on a hotel for a week? So anyway, off the soapbox, a lot of those higher rates for those though are business class cards. So I'm just throwing that out there. So you're probably not going to get that on your personal credit card, but even my personal credit card's okay. It's just not as good as my business line of credit. So just keep that in mind that you're losing money if you're paying cash for it. Anyway, off the soapbox, I didn't mean to hijack the stream for that. I hate to see people that that there's this culture that has brought us up that credit cards are bad. I want to say that my parents' generation kind of perpetuated that whole thing where credit card debt is a bad. Just use them responsibly and don't go into debt with it, and be able to pay your balance off, spend responsibly. The problem is people see, oh, I can go out and purchase $10,000 worth of stuff because I got a $10,000. That's not what that means. whatsoever. Anyway, we're done with the credit card discussion. Let's go back to the questions. I'm sorry. Ugh. In fact, so I had a credit card shut off. It sucked because it was shut off when I got into SHOT Show. It was shut off. Like I made a purchase before I got on the plane, and then I got where I was going. My credit card was shut off. Apparently, while I was in the air, somebody over in like Denmark or some crap like that had gone to a Whole Foods and purchased like a whole bunch of stuff, and they flagged it as fraud because they're like, yeah, you don't shop at Whole Foods. I'm like, Denmark wasn't a flag, right? Like they just, you don't shop at Whole Foods, so that couldn't have been you. We're shutting your credit card off. Instead of the transaction happened in a country halfway around the world, right? That wasn't the flag. All right, so let's go back to some of these questions. The traceability of credit cards. Your debit card is just as traceable, man. Like, I don't know. Maybe you're talking about like you go to like Walmart and buy a gift card, not traceable. I mean, maybe, but then they're ultimately can look at how you paid for that transaction. Like there are ways to get back through that unless you paid with cash and bought a gift card, then your debit card's just as traceable as a credit card. I hate to break it to you. I don't know who put that inside your head. Yeah, somebody says that their credit union does refund. I mean, there are some that do it, right? There are some that do it, but you're not. But if you're paying cash for it, you're not getting any percentage back on every dollar that you spend. Just throwing that out there. So, like when I redeem my credit card points, I get several $100s back into my account every month, and by several hundred, I'm talking nearly $1,000 every month back into my account from the expenditures that I made across all my accounts, right? So, you do that money all the way through, and you're saving percentage points on all of your purchases. Never use any form of electronic payment as sporting goods, so whatever. I listen, man. Okay, look. Everything that I purchase is electronically driven. Okay, everything that I purchase is purchased electronically, and I guarantee you that I purchase way more crap as it relates to the things that you're worried about purchasing at a sporting goods store. I guarantee you that I've got you by tenfold. All right. The idea that you have this unabated privacy died on 9/11. It will never be that way again. Sorry to break it to you. There is really no way to keep your transactions private outside of using something like a marginal digital currency like I don't even know what kind of Bitcoin derivative you would use, right? That passes you through the blockchain to make it less to make it harder for them to figure out what transaction occurred, right? Outside of cash and something like that, everything that you do is traceable. Somebody asked, why do you think judges have been so leery of a nationwide injunction? Well, to be completely honest, it's because the cases haven't been even like fully heard yet. Okay, we're talking about preliminary injunctions here. We're not talking about full decisions, right? the nationwide injunction, the reason why I personally think, and I've seen this argued a few different places, but because I am not an attorney, but I believe that the reason why they're so leery about issuing nationwide injunctions is because if you overburden the defendant, as in the government in this instance, they can say, well, the judges were overzealous in doing this, and you can see that kind of with the vacature of the frame and receiver rule, right? Where the judge went a little bit too far and then it got reeled back. If you go too far, and one of the ways that you can go too far very quickly is to extend the protected class outside of who's arguing the case. Because ultimately, you have to think about it like this: the court really doesn't give a shit about you. Okay, the court's interest is in remedying for the party who deserves the justice of the court, as in the plaintiff in the court has basically decided that the plaintiff is right. And how do they remedy in favor of the plaintiff? The reason you would get a nationwide injunction is if the court determined that it is the best way to adequately provide remedy to the plaintiff, is to just say, hey, this is way too convoluted. In order to best protect the plaintiffs, we just need to say nationwide, this is not enforceable. If they go too far too early, then it makes that decision a target for future litigation. And that is what I believe the judges are trying to avoid. They're trying to avoid rework, even though they've gotten a lot of rework in these cases. If they go too far too quick, then it's going to come back to them, say, hey, you went a little bit too far. They challenged you on the going a little bit too far, and now we're back here again. And I think that that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to narrowly tailor their decisions to best afford relief to the plaintiffs without incurring the wrath of somebody who wants to come around and say, you went too far on that one, right? And I believe that that is the cause for that. Now, ultimately, when this comes through, I do feel confident that at some point we will get a nationwide injunction on this. It's just, when does it happen? Does it happen at the next level? Does it happen at the end of this one? I'm not entirely sure. That will remain to be seen. You've mentioned your issues with some Republican politicians in past videos. Are you a libertarian? I consider myself politically homeless. Okay, because there are some views that I hold that would freak my parents out, for instance, right? In both directions. So the idea of being a Democrat, a Republican, or a libertarian, putting a label on me is pretty hard. Now, do I have very libertarian tendencies? Yes, but I also believe, I think the easiest way to put my political beliefs is like this. Is the government involved in it? Ask that question. And then my default position is, how do we reduce that? Now, there are some instances where I do believe that the government should be involved, particularly when it comes to problems with, and I have a constitutional basis for this, okay? When a corporation gets so big that it threatens the power of the Constitution, it is the mandate of the federal government to push that down. Okay? So when various media entities out there, for instance, consolidate so much power that they challenge the ability of the citizens of the United States to be able to freely express their beliefs and petition their government, at that point in time, the government needs to come in and break up that monopoly. Same thing, you could take it to like prescription drugs would be another one where that whole thing, and I'm going to try not to get into a major tirade here, but the whole thing where the the insurance company has a has a policy benefits manager company and a pharmacy and makes the drugs, right? The idea that one entity can make the drugs, sell the drugs to the consumer, set the insurance rates, and run the insurance company all at the same time, that is completely unacceptable, right? That is not okay, and that is a fine example of where the hot, like far crony capitalism side of things has gone exceptionally too far, and you are paying the bill for it. That is a prime instance where the government should step in and do something about that. However, we have a current situation in our government where you have people who are not smart enough to figure out that that is a problem. They have to have they have to have a full staff of aides to even keep them breathing and taking all their medicine every day, let alone making substantive decisions about the lives of their constituents. So while I would like that to be fixed, my default position is maybe not touch it, because you might break it worse than it already is because you have no idea what you're doing. So I have very little faith in my government's ability to do things. So as exemplified by their track record. So if you could sum up my political beliefs in a very short thought, it is the government involved in it? And if they are, how do we reduce that? Except for in some very specific instances that deal directly with the threats to the Constitution. People misspelling sentences. I mean, I'm not going to really dig, but cash is king for privacy. Yeah, I said that. More debit card stuff. Sorry. Okay. So we've been doing this for about 45 minutes now. It is dark enough outside for me to go do the night vision content that I want to do. So I want to close today with what I think is going to happen with this whole pistol brace thing. Well, actually, I kind of already covered what I think is going to happen. I'm going to take it to a different, take it a little bit different direction. If I was an anti-American leftist hack in a position of power in this administration, and I had command and control over people like Stephen Dettelbach, for instance, if I was them, I would tell the ATF to pull the final rule on not only frames and receivers, but also the pistol brace rule. I mean, I know we're talking about the pistol brace rule, but also the frame and receivers rule. And the reason that I would tell them to do that is because that would moot the whole argument, right? Because currently, as it stands, this whole overreach that this administration has perpetrated has done way more damage to the institutions that the gun controllers rely on to be able to perpetrate their infringements. And if they keep going the way that they are going, as I alluded to in my video earlier today, then they're going to lose, and they are going to lose big. And they're going to start dropping provisions off of the National Firearms Act, which is like the holy grail of everything that gun control stands for, because that's one of the things, the pillars that they point to. They say, hey, look, 100 years ago, we did this thing where we took machine guns and sawed-off shotguns and stuff like that off of the streets of America. Dangerous and unusual, right? That is a thing that they use consistently as a thing, a feather in their cap that they go to, that they fall back on. And what they have done with this whole pistol brace thing is start to scrape away at the foundations of that. And you can see that not only in today's decision, but if you go back and listen to the oral arguments when this was at the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, you will see that the general discussion about the validity of a lot of these provisions that have been long-standing, there's been a reevaluation. I believe that in the 1930s, when they initially did this, that not a lot of people were plugged in. And if you know the history of the NFA at all as it relates to like short barrel rifles, initially it was supposed to target handguns, right? And they screwed it up, essentially. They're like, oh, well, we can't really go for that. So to get it passed, they created a class out of nowhere, right? And actually, initially, it was supposed to be 18 inches. It was originally 18 inches instead of 16 inches. That's why you have 18 for shotguns and 16. But the government dropped a whole bunch of rifles on the market that had 16-inch barrels. So they're like, oh, crap, we did this thing, and they're going to call us on it. So they basically changed it to 16. So looking into the lineage of the NFA is actually kind of interesting, and it's really just a hodgepodge of, yes, it was M1 carbines. It was just a hodgepodge of emotional responses that they were basically able to ram through, because think about the technology of today. Not a lot of people, think about how unplugged in people are today with all of the technology that we have at our fingertips. Now translate that back to like 1930s technology. How plugged in do you think people really were back then? I would say not very. So these sorts of things just went unanswered and they have gone unanswered for almost 100 years now. And now the dividends are coming back around. Like that, what goes around comes around, and we've now come full circle. And now we're looking at, unfortunately, it's taken 100 years to do this, but we're looking at the validity of the original arguments. And what we find when we look into those, that this was literally a thing to be able to tack more crimes on top of gangsters. That's what the whole thing was. It was to, hey, we hemmed this guy up for something else, and we happened to catch him with one of these things, and therefore, because we hemmed him up for these things, we can also get him on these weapons charges. It was simply, once they caught a gangster, they were trying to pile as many things on top of him as possible. And that's just simply not valid in today's world, right? The technology has advanced to the point where, and much to the chagrin of the anti-American forces in our government and around the nation, the technology has proliferated to the point where there is a conversion or a convergence of technology where the capabilities of today's semi-automatic weapons are better than the ones that existed in 1930 that were fully automatic. So, and the whole idea of like automatic weapons fire, really, if you have a machine gun, right? Generally speaking, you don't go hog wild and spray and pray, right? You burst fire the thing, right? So the whole concept around automatic weapons fire and some of the other provisions that originally it was machine guns, and then they just tacked some other categories on there, like short barrel rifles, short barreled shotguns, all that sort of stuff, ultimately comes around to be frivolous, because we all know that the only difference between a pistol and a short barreled rifle is that it's got a stock on it. It doesn't change the functionality. It doesn't change the lethality. It doesn't change the characteristics of the external ballistics of the cartridge whatsoever, right? All it changes is the controllability. It actually makes it less concealable to have a stock on it. So that whole argument that they used back then is not valid. So in the face of comprehensive critical thinking, what we find is that it doesn't make any sense anymore, because why would you have arms? Why would you say that an arm that is less controllable is somehow more safe? And that's where it's gone. And that's why I think that SBRs are going to be the first thing that falls off the NFA provisions. But anyway, let's take one more quick look through the comments here. I haven't killed. I've refrained from smashing that gnat that's been flying around my face, because I don't want to accidentally hit my camera, but that thing's going to die here as soon as this stream is done. Anyway, if you missed my video from today, then go check out the video detailing all of the things that I went through with today's decision. Thank you guys for tuning in to today's live stream. I know it was very impromptu, but I want to do more of these because I find them a good time killer, because now it's dark enough to go do my night vision stuff that I wanted to do. And it's a good way to instantly interface with you guys. And I think that's a fantastic thing. So if you agree with my points or you disagree, I look forward to seeing you in the comment section down below. And one more reminder, please go check your subscription notification settings. Make sure that they're set to all notifications, because man, did I get yelled at this past weekend. I got to meet with my YouTube rep, and he was like, dude, what you doing? Fix your stuff, right? So if you could help me not get yelled at next time, I'd greatly appreciate it. And thank you guys again for tuning in. It was excellent to have you here as always. And I'm going to go throw on my night vision gear so I can go do some filming for you guys and hopefully get to bed at a decent hour. Thank you all, and hopefully we'll see you on another video here at the VSO Gun Channel.